I gave away a penalty in injury time, and it was at the halfway line. Stephen Jones lined the ball up, and his kick just went under the bar. We hadn't won a Grand Slam in 63 years, and I was close, inches close to being the guy that cost Ireland the Grand Slam. Psychologically, that took a big dent on me. I couldn't sit back and enjoy what we'd achieved.
Welcome back to the 10th episode of the Unstoppable podcast. I'm incredibly excited to have all-round nice guy and rugby legend Paddy Wallace here today. So thanks for coming, Paddy.
Thanks, Jonny. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And basically, for anyone that doesn't know, if you're a rugby fan, you will know this, but Paddy's had an incredible rugby career and he's now moved into something completely different post-rugby, which we're going to talk about on this episode. He had 189 appearances for Ulster, 30 appearances for Ireland, so a pretty incredible career, and he was involved in the Grand Slam victory for Ireland in 2012?
2009.
2009, and then the Heineken Cup final was 2012, so I need to get my facts right further on in this podcast. But Paddy, yeah, give us a bit of an introduction into kind of who you are now post-rugby.
It's take me back there a wee bit. But yeah, no, I've post-rugby now, I've been on a bit of a journey, I have to say. And I find myself as a financial planner now, probably the past 6 years now. So transitioning out of rugby, incredibly difficult, and you don't actually realise it until you have to go through it yourself. So it has been a journey, but it's one that I'm fairly proud of now. And find myself in a profession. I love advising people on their finances, and it's something that through my experiences of whenever I was a player, I now see the benefit in it and the value that I can provide. So yeah, about 15 years as a rugby player. For rugby players, it's not like footballers where you can pick one of your 6 houses to retire in. You have to get back up, working again, and bringing in an income, and sometimes that can be very difficult to find a landing spot for you. So yeah, no, financial planner, helping clients, business owners, directors manage their finances and reach their ultimately their financial goals in the future. Yeah,
100%. Love that. And I think, like Paddy said, people probably don't see the transition post-professional sport, and they just see it as like, oh, well, you had this great life for 15 years and you were able to travel the world and do what you loved, but then it's actually finding out, right, what am I going to do next? And like you said, even like, you almost wrap your whole identity in being a rugby player, and then post-rugby, it's like, right, what am I actually going to do next? And how can I kind of learn the new skills from the experiences that I've had over the last 15 years in rugby, and then kind of turn it into a career, which is exactly what you've done. So if we're rewinding back, kind of at the start of this podcast, we'll basically dive into the rugby career, and then we'll look at what you're doing now and how the transition happened. But, suppose talk us through childhood, getting involved with rugby, and maybe influential people at that stage in your life.
Yeah, well, I suppose I was lucky to be one of 3 boys. My father was incredibly sporty. He's 73. He's just finished playing Irish veterans tennis, so he played rugby for London Irish. I had an older brother who was a couple of years older than me at school, and he was the captain of Campbell College. Whenever I was in 5th year, I played with him, and so that was great. But it was probably the grounding of having an older brother. He had his mates, and everybody's into rugby, and they kicked the shit out of me, every weekend. Yeah, that developed a love for the game, but also a love for the physical side of it, and being able to take a bit of a beating. I was always smaller, but I was always, one day I'm going to get there, and I'm going to be able to beat the shit out of them instead.
Yeah.
So that was probably something. And my poor younger brother, Neil, I probably took all my frustration out on him then. So yeah, I was given a beating and I handed the beatings out. But yeah, we were a very, very sporty family. I played all sports. I had a very early love for NFL. My dad used to let me stay up on Sunday nights with him and watch the NFL. And I remember watching the Chicago Bears win the Super Bowl in '86. And at that time, we were learning how to write letters in school. And we were supposed to write away to a celebrity of your choice. And I wrote away to Walter Payton, who was the running back for the Chicago Bears. And about 3 months later, this signed A4 picture came back from Soldier Field, Chicago, and I was just blown away. My dad bought me the NFL, best ever rushers, and I used to watch that daily to see, just mesmerised by their footwork and their skill. And I was sort of embedded in my DNA from an early stage of my life. So I had that. I was always learning to try and beat people with my feet, and I think that carried over then into later life in sport. So it's lots of little different things that I think added to the soup, I suppose, in terms of how I got to take on rugby as a career.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting that you're kind of involved in that. It probably gives you that competitive edge, playing with your brothers and always wanting to win, and then that carries over into professional sport. What was your first experience of competitive sport, and was it in rugby?
Yeah, it was, tennis, I suppose. Played all the tournaments, the underage tournaments at both club and everywhere, Ballycastle. So that was an individual mindset, but I always had rugby. Rugby was always my passion. I remember knocking up with my tennis coach at the time, and he said, "You're just not focused. You're not involved." And I said, "Well, I want to be a professional rugby player." And he was, "You're never going to be a professional rugby player," because it had literally, I don't think it had even gone professional at that stage. So even going back then, you look back and on those memories, and it was always my passion and my goal, I suppose, from an early age.
Yeah, 100%. And was there ever a moment then when you were growing up that you kind of thought this professional rugby thing could work?
Yeah. Bit of a sliding doors moment, I suppose. I think I'm a late August birthday, and 𝐋𝐢𝐼R𝐶, which is, it's the pinnacle of playing schoolboy rugby. You just want to play for Ireland, you want to play for your country. I played for Ulster schools, but the cut-off date for Irish schools was the 1st of September, so I was 4 days too old for that, and I was just gutted, and I was then put into the under-19 squad, thankfully, and 𝐷𝐿 was the coach, and I managed to make the squad, and went away to France in the World Cup. Had a great team. Certain Brian O'Driscoll was on the team, and we ended up winning the under-19 World Cup. And it was just an explosion of rugby at the time in Ireland, because we hadn't performed well at Six Nations. We've always done well at underage, but to have that profile of winning on the world stage was just ultimately fantastic. And on the back of that, Ireland set up a rugby academy for guys coming out of school, so they could nurture them through to potentially professional rugby. So I was lucky enough to be picked in that first academy year, and then off the back of that, I got a scholarship to UCD. Again, a sliding doors moment where the coach for UCD, who was looking at whether or not he'd bring me on to their academy, went down to watch me play against Munster. We were shit. I was crap. He walked away. He said, "Nah, not for me." And Campbell, a month later, happened to be going down to 𝐶𝐼𝐼𝐼 to play, and that was his local club. And he thought, you know what, I'll go down and give him another look. And although we were beaten by about 30 points, I played pretty well. And off the back of that, I got picked in the UCD academy, and that was just down to him turning up on a Saturday morning when he didn't need to. So a bit of luck obviously played its part, but that propelled me into the system, I suppose. And then once you're in the system, it's up to you then to stay in it and progress up the levels.
Yeah, and on another point, so obviously you won the Under-19 Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
And Irish sport, and rugby in particular, seems to punch way above its weight compared to other sports in this country. Why do you think that is, and what do you think is producing so many good rugby players compared to maybe other nations right now?
I think the provincial setup that we have lends itself really well to the international stage, because it's centrally contracted. It's centrally owned basically by Dublin, by the RFU, so they can set a lot of systems in place that's going to just help feed the international team, so they can control the minutes that a player plays every week if they're in the Irish setup, so they can get the best out of them. Managing the physical side of rugby and injuries is massively important. And you can see in the likes of England, where it is a constant battle between club and country. England, the RFU don't have control over the clubs. So do they get the best out of the players? I'm not sure that they do in comparison with Ireland. So that's a big point. And Ireland has punched well above their weight. I think the mentality of rugby lends itself to the crazy Irish people as well. We just have that will to win, it comes through in the physicality of what rugby is. There's a lot of selflessness that needs to go into being a team player, and I think that Irish mentality really lends itself to that.
Yeah, I love that. And there's obviously highs and lows of professional sport. You had a great career, 15 years of playing professional rugby. What would you say was your proudest moment of that career?
There's lots of milestones along the way. Getting your first, whenever you come out of school, you just want to get that first professional contract, and then that's a goal. You hit that, then you just want to get your first cap. And then you hit that, and it just keeps progressing. So it's hard to put, a finger on one. Certainly playing for Ireland was probably my proudest moment for me and my family. Who had been on a long journey. I'd been, whenever I got my first professional contract with Ulster, I ended up playing about 3 months later against the All Blacks. I was a 20-year-old, I think. Bleached blonde hair, and playing for Ireland A. So that was the age of 20, and I played really well, scored 19 points at Ravenhill, and then I was in and out of squads, basically for the next 5-6 years without ever getting capped. So there was a long road of disappointment and not getting capped. I was playing out half at the time. I had David Humphreys and Ronan O'Gara in front of me, so it was very difficult to get into the team, or let alone a match day squad. So whenever David Humphreys retired, Eddie O'Sullivan was the coach, and I was in the match day squads for the autumn internationals, and I got to play my first cap then against the Pacific Island team. It was the last ever international we played at Lansdowne Road before they ripped it down. So that was a really proud moment for me and my family, and it went really well, and we got man of the match. So that's good memories.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that window of time where you were playing the waiting game, how did you stay motivated and know that you might not have been able to see it yet, but you thought it would still come at some stage?
Yeah, it was a very difficult time. I broke my leg, I think in 2003. I got capped in 2006, so that 2003 year was a pivotal time for me. I broke my leg. There wasn't the sort of rehab and strength and conditioning behind the scenes that there is now, so you're sort of left to your own devices, and probably, for the first few, probably 6 months, I struggled with that, probably out drinking too much, partying, and not being totally devoted to the rehab process. So whenever I came back, you know, I wasn't straight back into the team. I was down playing club rugby for Ballymena. I had to completely press a reset button and completely change how I went about things. And I had help along the way. It started with a coffee with a guy called 𝐋𝐢𝐟𝐿, who sort of worked with a lot of the GA teams. He worked with our man 𝐚𝐿 and we had a coffee. He said he'll have me playing for Ireland in 2 years, and got there in I think 16 months under him, and he just challenged everything I was doing, I have to say, from, you know, nutrition, training, for the work I was doing behind the scenes, and yeah, he changed the course of my career, I think. So I owe a huge debt of gratitude to Hugh.
Yeah, 100%. And there's always probably people along the journey that have guided you in the right direction, and sometimes all you need is just that support system and that little bit of accountability and education around what to actually do at that stage. And that's probably a prime example of you operating from vision and not circumstances. So you had a vision for where you wanted your rugby career to go, but the circumstances were almost stacked up against you because you were getting injured, you maybe weren't getting chosen, things like that. So it's kind of interesting to know that you had to wait that time frame, because people probably look at your career and forget about that window of time, that you maybe had to wait it out and try and stay motivated and try and do the correct things.
Yeah, that's it. You know, dreams without goals are just dreams in the end of the day. And, you know, you have to put consistency behind those goals, and map it out with micro actions that's going to get you there. And that's a big part of my processing now in life in general is yes, you can have goals, but what are the actions you have to take to reach those? Yeah, it's served me well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And obviously we spoke about proud moments and really good moments. There's obviously been challenges throughout your career in rugby. What would you say was the standout one? I'm sure there's been plenty, but was there anything that was just like really hard to get through?
Yeah, it was bittersweet. I suppose we, as you say, I think at the top of the show, we won the Grand Slam in 2009, and it all came down to the last game in Wales and Cardiff, and I gave away a penalty in injury time, and it was at the halfway line. Stephen Jones lined the ball up, and his kick just went under the bar. We hadn't won a Grand Slam in 63 years, and I was close, inches close to being the guy that cost Ireland the Grand Slam. Psychologically, that took a big dent on me. I almost couldn't sit back and enjoy what we'd achieved, because at the back of my mind it was what if that went over, what ifs, and, you know, where would my life end up? You know, I probably wouldn't have stayed in Ireland. It probably would have left. It was it was tough. It was tough, I have to say. So that was probably the biggest challenge. But, you know, I moved forward from that, stayed at Ulster, and after that, you know, I enjoyed my time still with Ireland, but we'd never achieved really anything with Ulster, and David Humphreys came in as our he was our director of rugby, and I could see a real swell of change coming. We recruited well, and Ulster were capable then, and I really enjoyed those last 4 years of my career. Probably the fondest memories of my time in the sport. Yeah, we challenged for league titles and 𝐻𝐼𝐿 Cup titles, and that I suppose was a big transition for me from that point onwards.
Yeah, 100%. And sometimes we say with your biggest breakdowns, you have your biggest breakthroughs, and you know that was probably a really challenging time. Even though you still won the Grand Slam, it was like that like you say, the what ifs, the buts, the maybes, and what could have happened. And often we focus on the things that haven't happened more than actually the logistical things that actually happened. But yeah, no, it was such a great achievement, and I'm sure you're glad that the
kick didn't go over.
Yeah,
it was funny. With Prince William came into the dressing rooms after, And he was walking around, my head was down, and he over goes, "Well done." He goes, "What's wrong?" He goes, "I was a dickhead that almost cost us the game." And he goes, "Well, you missed it."
Yeah.
So smile and enjoy it. So yeah, that's a nice wee memory from it.
Yeah, I love that. And how long did the celebrations last after that?
Yeah, it was good crack now. We headed back to Dublin, and yeah, I would say it was 2 or 3 days staying down near Docky, and just took over a local pub, and it was good fun, I have to say. So yeah, but it was, I think the next week I had to play against Leinster, and and I think within about 10 minutes I was still puking up champagne on the pitch. Yeah.
And would you say that in that game that would have been like the biggest or the best crowd that you played in front of, or was there any other standout crowds?
It's funny, yeah. I mean, I would say best memory was, I think it was in 2007. As I say, I played in that last international at Lansdowne Road, and we had to move then to play in a different stadium. We ended up playing, and thankfully being invited and allowed to play at 𝐼𝐿 Park for about 3 years while they developed the stadium. And there was a huge swell of anticipation in the lead up to the first game against England. They'd be playing God Save the Queen at 𝐼𝐿 Park. So that was a nerve-wracking experience, to say the least. And to be fair to the Irish crowd, you could hear a penny drop whenever God Save the Queen came on, and we went out and put about 40 on them that day. So it was a really great memory, and great memories from playing 𝐼𝐿 Park. This, you know, the stadium, the pitch was just super fantastic. Like, it was just, yeah, looking back, yeah, whenever I try and recite those memories, I think 𝐼𝐿 Park stands as the best stadium and most enjoyable experience.
100%. And do you think the crowd plays an impact and maybe enhances your performance to a certain degree when you're playing in those big games and you've got the support of a crowd behind you?
Yeah, I think so. It's tangible whenever the team are going well. You can feel, you know, feed off the energy of the crowd. And again, whenever you're away from home at the same time, you can't let it, you almost have to block it out. And to be fair, I always find it quite easy to do and zone out and just focus on what was going on the pitch. But sometimes you have to let yourself enjoy it. And I think that comes both at the start of the game and the end of the game, whenever you're coming out and soaking up the anthem, soaking up the atmosphere within the ground, and then, you know, enjoying those, you know, laps of honour as well whenever you win and do something special. You know, being able to go down to 𝐶𝐿 Park against Munster, I think I was in 2012, in the Heineken Cup quarter-final and win. You know, that was a special moment. I remember the crowd spaying for blood, and us being able to enjoy that lap of honour at the end was a special moment.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously we're sitting in a gym here, and strength and conditioning wise, that's something that I'm hugely passionate about, and I think it's super important in both professional sport and amateur sport and everyday people. But I suppose when you were playing, did you have much focus around strength and conditioning? I'm sure you did go to the gym, but did you notice a change in that over the years from the start of your career to potentially nearing the end?
Yeah, a huge change. I mean, it was very basic stuff whenever I started that journey. Certainly at Ulster is slightly more technical at Irish level, but nowhere near the consideration that has to be taken with your strength and conditioning, your prehab, your rehab. Nowadays it's just at a different level. So yeah, it was almost like, yeah, just go in, do weights, bulk up. Bulk was the big buzzword almost in rugby at the time. You wanted size, you wanted size and strength and muscle mass, and it wasn't based on functional movement and speed. I think gradually as I progressed, so did professionalism within rugby, because whenever I started, you know, it was a move from amateur rugby to professional, and we're finding our feet along the way. And I think Alan Solomons was the coach, my first Ulster coach, and he brought in a guy called 𝐶𝐿, he worked with at the Springboks, and it was very fitness led. It was, you know, build a big engine for everybody and marry that with strength. But certainly over the years, yeah, it's progressed massively. And you know, I had my fair share of injuries, so I went through a lot of rehabbing as well. Again, that side of sport has got a lot more professional, a lot more technical as well. So yeah, went along that journey, and definitely saw a transition. And nowadays, you take those lessons with you into post-career rugby, because you're still managing injuries that you've had for the last sort of 15 years, and you know, you have to be committed to having you know, if you want a good lifestyle outside of, you know, with your family, and you know, be able to go and play five-a-side or play, you know, whatever sport it is, you have to maintain your body, especially if it's been put through the trenches for 15 years. So yeah, it'll be a big focus for me now, is maintaining a sort of a functional body that, you know, you can stand me in good stead for the next 20 years.
Yeah, and what does that look like now? So obviously you've maintained a good physique, you haven't gained a lot of weight or anything like that. So how have you managed to stay in shape, having not, you obviously no longer have the accountability of knowing you have to go and play a rugby game at the weekend? What keeps you accountable at this stage, and why do you still show up?
so I can roll out of bed in the mornings, really. Yeah, I mean, I've broken both legs. I've got a ACL replacement, knee reconstruction in the left. I've 3 shoulder surgeries, two in the hand. Yeah, broken collarbone. Lots of different injuries. But my knee needs maintenance, I would say, because it has a knock-on effect. And I've got no fluid between my L4 and 5 discs. So these all, you know,
Yeah.
the whole posterior chain is connected. If the strength of my knee drops, has a knock-on effect. My glutes then affect the back. It's just a chain that, you know, I have to stay on top of all of it. So yeah, cardio-wise, probably more mentally than anything, to get a sweat on. So I do that probably, you know, 3 or 4 times a week. I make time now. I've taken up tennis again, and that's more to spend time with my dad twice a week on the tennis court, and still fairly competitive because he's good. Like,
who wins the games then?
We're sort of, I'm getting there now. I've only picked the racket up since January again, and after 25 years, and
get the
but
excuses.
he's given me lessons, and I'm starting to play a wee bit again with Gilroy. Craig Gilroy's retired. He's been mustered with the tennis for about 3 years, so that keeps me. I think I'm going to be ready for him soon.
Yeah, 100%. And you're talking about your dad helping you with the tennis and coaching you to become better. When you think about coaches you've had over the years, is there any standout people that had a massive impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, every coach, you take lessons from them all, and certain coaches were right at certain points in your career and times. I think Brian McLaughlin, and married with, you know, at the time, David Humphreys, director of rugby. Brian was the coach. Was a good combination, because David was able to bring in world-class players. He had that power and ability to, you know, recruit the likes of Ruan Pienaar, Johan Muller, Petty Vandenberg, John Afoa, and marry that with local players like, you know, Rory Best, Stevie Ferris, Andrew Trimble. You know, we had a really, really good team, and what Brian McLaughlin was able to do was share ownership of that team with those senior players, like, you know, Johan, myself, and Ruan and Rory, and you know, with that ownership, gave us a real responsibility for the squad, and, you know, how training was managed, and, you know, how we played on the pitch. and it worked really well. And we went on. I think I played 10 seasons, Ulster went 10 seasons without getting past the quarterfinals, getting into the getting past the group stages in Europe after they'd won the cup in 1999. So that was 7 of those years I was involved, and I was just getting bitterly disappointed every time we fell short. So getting out of the group stages was a real highlight for me due to all the disappointment of the previous years. And that was, I think, Brian's first year involved. We went down to France, and I think it was the first time we'd Ulster won away in France as well. So that was another milestone. And then we went on that run in 2012 to get to the final. So I'd say Brian can certainly hold his head up high in his achievements as an Ulster coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you think about qualities that he potentially possessed and what makes a good coach, what does that look like for you?
I think it's, all coaches have their own views and probably methods in terms of how he wants the team to play and perform and train. And there has to be a trust placed in the players that they know as well. There has to be ownership, with the players. It can't just be sort of a hierarchy, and it's my way or the highway. And I think Brian was excellent at that. He whenever you have an ownership of something, it drives you to make it successful, rather than just being told this is the way, and if veer away from that, and probably take less of a hold on it then.
Yeah, 100%. And you went through a bit of a transition with regards to the position you played in rugby. Mm-hmm. So talk us through that, what led to it, why did that happen, and did you enjoy the new role that you then went into following that?
Yeah, I think so. I think my personality lent itself to being a ball player, and I suppose whenever you're young, you tend, the good ball players tend to play out half. I was a good kicker, I was, good hands, good runner. There's a roadblock in front of me with David Humphreys and with Ronan O'Gara at the top level. So whenever I joined Ulster, then I think Alan Solomon saw the talent that I had, and he said, well, I need you on the pitch, so you're going to play fullback. So first time I played fullback, and that first season and a half went really well until I broke my leg, and then, as I say, I went sort of on a journey. But on that journey, I really wanted to try my hand at playing inside centre, and I was asking for it, and it was again serendipity or sliding doors, whatever. My opportunity was given to me off the disappointment of others, and that was due to 2 injuries. And I was covering 10 on the bench. One day, it was in the lead into when Ulster last won silverware, which was in 2006 when we won the league. So the last 5 games, I've done enough to get myself back into the squad, and I was covering the bench a few positions, and two players went down. I had to go in and play 12 within 10 minutes, and played really well. And from that moment on, when available for selection, I pretty much started every game at 12 in the 12 jersey until I retired. So I made that jersey my own for probably 7 years after that point, and it was just, you call it luck, but I'd prepped and I'd strive to get to that point. It just so happened that Jonny Bell broke his thumb, and Paul Steinmetz had injured himself as well in a previous game. So worked out well for me.
It was meant to be, and it worked out. Yeah, 100%. And I suppose whenever you spent a lot of time at Ulster, so your whole career basically, Why was that? Was there ever clubs that came in for you, or did you feel like you just enjoyed the life that?
Yeah, no, there was opportunities. I think going back to that dark period, after I broke my leg, it was about 2005. 2005, and I was, I was motivated. I was going well. I was fit. But I just wasn't getting any opportunities. And this shows the cycle of luck, probably. That Cast, who are one of the big clubs in France, my agent said, listen, they've got an injury at 10 and they'd like to send you down for a trial. And Ulster agreed. I wasn't near the team at the time. And I was probably in year 2 of a 4-year contract. So they were probably thinking this is a good way to get him off the books. So I went down and went really well. I was on my way to the president's office to sign the contract, and I got a call from my agent say, listen, Ulster have reneged, so you have to come home. And I was like, what the fuck, am I wasting my time for a week down in France, living in a motel? But I suppose, I was disappointed at the time. But after that, I came back a month later. Paul Simons got injured. The week later, Jonny Bell got injured, and I was in the team. And I finished off the last 5 games, I think, of the season. We won the league. Off the back of that, 3 months later, I was getting capped by Ireland. So, if I'd gone to France, I would have never played for Ireland.
Do you think that would have been the case?
Yeah. If I'd gone to France, once you're playing overseas, you're not considered for selection. And then the following season, Montpellier came in with a huge offer after the back of, having played for Ireland and whatnot. And it was a very hard offer to turn down, I have to say. Yeah. But again, I just had 2 caps for Ireland, or maybe a couple more at that stage. But I knew if I'd taken that step to go to Montpellier, I don't know if I would have achieved more, or I would have stayed within the Irish squad. I wouldn't have. I would have been overseas and not considered. So yeah, Ulster sort of came up in terms of their offering and bridged the gap slightly. So I was happy to stay on, and I just had PJ, my youngest, or my oldest now. I think a few months earlier, so that played a big part in the decision too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously, mindset-wise, plays a huge role, psychology of professional sport, etc., etc. Have you had any key lessons that kind of stand by you now following finishing rugby, or anything that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one thing that's always. So somebody told me once, it's the work you do behind the scenes that nobody sees is the ones that is the work that counts, and I sort of live my life by that. Other lessons, going back to the earlier point, yeah, you can have dreams and aspirations, but if you don't have a plan and goals to work towards those, then they'll always remain dreams. You have to put the actionable steps in place, and those are smaller actions, whether that's a daily routine that you can follow and habits that you employ, and make yourself accountable to them. And nobody, it's the guy looking back in the mirror that you have to be accountable to every day, and because he knows if you're bluffing, and you got to live your life that way, and yeah, it's like doing the ice baths every day. Like we've talked about that before. I've got a chest freezer sitting outside on my patio. Now I've clad it in nice wood and stuff, but nice. I make sure pretty much every day I'm in that, and you're sitting in bed, alarm goes off at 7:15, and it's the last thing in the world you want to do. But you just gotta do it. Get up, do it. Stick a good Metallica song on, and yeah, it has a knock-on effect to the rest of the day because you got your first win early on.
Absolutely love that. And having reflected over the last number of minutes on your career and your rugby career, looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
You'll always probably live with some regrets and what ifs in life. Yeah, potentially, if I had adopted that mindset that I developed at an earlier point in my career, maybe things would have accelerated earlier, but I tend not to look back with any regrets. I've had a great career. I've taken all the good lessons I've learned from rugby and brought that into my life now, and all the lessons that, all the bad things and all the mistakes that you made, you learn from them. And if you can't learn and take knowledge from those and hold on to that, and then you're doing yourself a disservice, I think. So yeah, I've taken both the good and the bad and employed it now in my life going forward. And rugby is just it's a great learning curve for anybody to be involved in. From a team sport, I don't think there's anything better. There's so much accountability. There's so much you can learn from the game that you can teleport into your own life, and how you live your life. That camaraderie, the brotherhood that you have in the dressing room, the accountability that you have for yourself. I don't think there's a sport that almost matches it.
Yeah, 100%. And then following that and taking the conversation into life after rugby. So you touched upon it briefly in the intro of this episode, but tell us a bit more about what led you down the path that you're currently on and kind of why you decided to go down that route.
Yeah, I mean, I came out of rugby and went through a very messy divorce. That's for probably first and foremost, that the savings and the security that I had dissipated very quickly, and I wanted to get out of rugby, find my feet, and follow a passion, and that accelerated a lot quicker than I needed to. So I went into PwC, which is a big, massive corporate over here, and I suppose caveat that with, I come from a family of, my father's a chartered accountant, my older brother Rory's a chartered accountant, my younger brother Neil's a chartered accountant. So naturally, PwC, I was in their high net tax team at the time, probably following the footsteps of going down, started my tax exams, and but it was a good experience for me, but the experience I learned was that I didn't want to be in a big corporate environment like that, and I decided to go back to square one after the divorce. I wanted to build, I was living with my parents for probably 18 months. That was a very difficult time, managing that with two young kids and putting their needs first. I bought a small 3-bedroom house, put an extension on it, and started my life again. And with that, I decided to take on a new role in financial planning, and that was just self-learning. There's 6 exams I had to do. That was just self-discipline, hitting the books, doing all the exams, getting through that in just over a year, and then becoming licensed to advise, and then COVID happened. So it was a very challenging intro into my career as a financial advisor. I'd sort of shadowed and done my exams previous to that, and with my practice. But as soon as I came licensed in sort of 2019, then first year was a tricky one with COVID. But as people said, if I get through that, you've got a long career ahead of you. So it's blossomed well, and I enjoy it. I suppose from my experience, whenever I was playing rugby and professional, and had disposable income, I was doing the wrong things. I look back now, I wasn't putting money into a pension. I wasn't getting good advice. I was buying the 5 litre cars, all the shiny objects, and I could have come out of rugby in a lot better shape than I did. Not to say I didn't come away. I did save, but if I had known now what I did, if I had known then what I know now, yeah, I would have been in a lot better shape. And I think that drive is for me to impart that knowledge on others, not be it in a professional sporting sense, but generally, there's lessons I've learned that are transferable to anybody at any age, and whether they're business owners starting off or if they're successful and they've sold their companies, there's knowledge that I can impart that will help people in their financial journeys.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I suppose like so many of us have probably fell victim to that in the past, where you kind of see a shiny object and you want to get it, and that's probably the lessons that you've now taken. It's like, right, you need to kind of avoid that instant gratification of buying the thing and think about your future, and obviously now you're in a position to help people with that, and it probably gives you satisfaction then being able to help a younger person or an older person who's just come out of a business to then actually put themselves on this journey. Where, because I was at your event recently, you had an event and you were talking about finance and the kind of lessons, and one of the biggest things that I took away was being able to start earlier, and that compounds over time, and it kind of, there's similarities probably between a financial journey and a fitness journey, an investing journey and a fitness journey, because you need to play the long game. It takes time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that you're going to get instant results with and an instant reward, and it's being able to actually manage your own expectations, because you're not going to make a load of money overnight. You're not going to achieve the body of your dreams or the health of your dreams overnight. So it's being able to actually probably create that roadmap like what you're doing for your clients, and give them an idea, because sometimes for me as a business owner, or business owners listening to this, it's probably hard to look to the future and kind of paint that picture. And sometimes you think about a pension and you're like, oh well, that's boring. But how do you kind of find, or what would be the kind of process of when someone would reach out to you, and kind of how does that journey look?
Yeah, well, my first meeting is really a discovery meeting to see to get a deep understanding of their circumstances, and that's information gathering, what their motivations are, what their goals, and seeing what they have to play with in terms of their income, their expenditure. I take away all that information and I process that into what I call a sort of financial master plan or blueprint, and that models then the next sort of 30, 40, 50 years for them, based on their base plan, what they've done now, and then I can add, whether they increase their, put a pension contribution in every month, whether they fund an 𝐼SA, if they have milestones for their kids, first university fees or their first house deposit, if they want to build those in. If they want to retire at this age, or potentially that might show that they could probably retire 5 years earlier, and that roadmap is something tangible that clients can look at, review, and get a real picture of, well, I need to start putting steps in place here, because once I get to retirement, the age that I want to retire at, that may only fund me for the next 15 years. So as I say, it gives something for them to look at and review on an annual basis, or however often I would meet them and review it and see if we need to make any changes along the way. So as you say, like it's a journey. A journey like fitness. You can't just go into one meeting and expect things to just completely turn around. It's a process that you have to buy into and commit to, and the rewards are there to see at the end, if you commit to it.
Yeah, and like you say, it's probably establishing a why behind why you need to invest and why you want to invest.
Yeah.
And like you said, probably similar to fitness, it's actually setting out a goal, setting out a target, creating a why, and them reaching out to you is reaching out to help from a professional instead of just playing a guessing game and also wasting time. Because I see that with clients that join our program, it's like they just want to give up on wasting time, and they're mostly business owners. They're in a position where they don't have a ton of time, and they need to actually get accountable to doing things in a time efficient way, but also know that they're doing the right things, which is exactly what you're doing with this finance stuff. Because, you know, for me, and I know you've advised me from time to time, in the sense of like, you know, you could go and I could play the guessing game and think, right, I'm going to do this next and I'm going to do this next, but I know that I'm going to do all the wrong things without your support, etc., etc. So it's being able to actually,
and that comes from trust, Jonny, and that is the, I suppose, probably the same with in fitness, that you have to have an absolute trust in you or the advisor that is providing you with the knowledge that it's the right course of action for you. My work is not transactional in the slightest. It is, I don't want clients that are there for, you know, 2 years to set up their ISA and you know, disinvest. You know, I want 10, 15-year journeys where I know I can make a tangible, solid difference in their lives and outcomes. And that's, you know, I have good relationships with my clients as a result of that. And yes, there are years like 2022 was a bad year for the markets, and suddenly you become, you know, a therapist more than anything. And it's just sometimes it's pulling people back from the ledge of making poor decisions, and you know, that's shown in how the markets bounced back last year. A lot of people that wanted to just get out while the going was bad, you know, they've stayed in. They've seen the benefit of that.
Yeah, and it fascinates me how you went from playing that rugby career, doing incredibly well, playing in front of all these crowds, to then moving into this working world and actually having to go back to the books as well as you kind of get on in life. Probably the last thing, whenever I think about me, yes, I do personal development and courses and things like that, but no designated degrees or qualifications because I've done everything I need to do at this stage. But I'm sure that was probably difficult to go from, you know, turning up to a rugby pitch to turning into an office or a library to revise again.
It was very tough because, especially, you know, I went to uni and I did a business degree, but, you know, 15 years later, it's pretty much redundant. You know, what you've learned is, you know, it's gone by the wayside. So, you know, I want to be the best at what I do as well. So with that comes a responsibility of knowledge and tooling yourself up to be the best. Yeah, that was difficult, I have to say. It was a difficult time in my life, and you know, I think it's held me in good stead since.
Yeah, and I think like
difficult times,
yeah, like hard, but the standards that you live by in your rugby career, the discipline that you possessed at that time has carried through, and then you've been in a position where you're like, right, now I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and here's what I need to do to achieve it. You've ultimately done the same thing as you did when you started your rugby career. You're like, oh, I want to be capped by Ireland, and now you're like, right, I want to be the best possible financial advisor and support system for my clients that I can be. So it carries over, and the fundamentals are similar to a certain degree, and it's just about actually having the goal, having the target, and taking the logical steps, albeit at a different stage in your life, but equally a new chapter for you, really.
Yeah, no, it has been, and it's one that I'm enjoying immensely. You know, again, going back to that post-rugby transition and divorce and, you know, life being up in the air, you know, you set yourself goals. You know, I'm starting you know, my new part one, not new. Sarah's has put up with me for 8 years since the divorce, and we're having our first child in July, and
amazing.
So that was a long goal and a long journey to get there. We've moved house. That was a goal. So yeah, we're hitting those milestones again. Man, I'm hungry for more, and yeah, it makes all that shit and hard work that I went through, you know, it's definitely that it's created a resilience that has stood me in good stead.
100%.
And yeah, I'm reaping the rewards now.
it's being able to celebrate those wins, because I think so many people listen to this will watch this and, you know, think about your success and think, you know, that how amazing that is, and they'll celebrate your wins for you throughout your career. But sometimes celebrating our own wins is the most difficult thing to do, and I think I would encourage anyone listening to this, you know, to take stock of the last 10 years of your life, what's went in. I actually recently did this on my own social media, and I spent time kind of breaking through into like 4 chapters of my life, the phases I went through from going to university to starting this career to then transitioning into the different things that I'd done. But it was a great opportunity to reflect, and probably you having this conversation has helped you kind of think back
it definitely has,
on that journey, you know?
Because you drift into the next day, the next week, and you're very forward orientated, so sometimes it is nice to look back and reflect. And you're dead right, I haven't thought about my career. I barely watched a match back.
I was watching some last night to brush up my facts. I seen a try against the All Blacks, and I also seen the bleach blonde hair, which also looked pretty cool.
And I would never have thought about those, you know. I'm sort of, so it is nice. It's nice to look back and remember those times as well.
Yeah, and from your rugby career, do you stay connected with anyone in particular? I'm sure you built up a lot of connections over the years that have probably kind of stuck with you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm good. I don't think I'm on bad terms with any of my teammates. Everybody then moves on in life and goes in different directions. But we meet up every year for a Christmas dinner with all my old teammates, and then in between that, I'd stay in touch with quite a few of them. Get the odd bit of golf in and catch up. You gotta make an effort to do it. Because, as you know, everybody's moving in different directions, different jobs, you know, different countries, you know, certain families, all sorts of barriers to keeping that contact in place. So you do have to, you got to make an effort to do it, and it's very enjoyable whenever you do. So, you know, because you share time on the battlefield almost, and they can sometimes in difficult times be the best source of support for you as well, which I found, you know, years ago. So good memories, good bunch of boys that I went through the years with. So it's always nice to stay in touch.
Absolutely, class. And the last few questions are bit of fun, pretty informal. Obviously, really insightful episode so far. And if you're kind of keen to follow along with Paddy's journey, be sure to kind of follow along with his social media page, and you kind of find out more about what he's doing. But it's been an interesting conversation for me, and getting an insight into kind of you, and having the opportunity to encourage you to reflect as well. And there's some huge lessons that I've personally taken away, and I know every listener here will take some lessons as well. So thanks for that. And
no worries.
You know, for that bit of fun, you know, holidays, are financial advisors allowed to go on holiday, or is that a waste of money, or what's the thoughts on that?
It's probably been a big sacrifice in recent years, because, you know, I'm just focused on building a business. But Sarah and I have been away on a few and been away with the kids. Just before COVID hit, I took the kids away on their first ski holiday.
Nice.
That's probably been that was great to see, because my kids now are 17 and 14, so they're up, and you know, they I remember being taken on ski holidays whenever I was a kid, and that was really enjoyable to be able to sort of complete that circle.
100%. And then rugby wise, somewhere you never played but you would have loved to, a stadium that stands out?
I think I've played in them all. Twickenham played where? Probably Soldier Field. I was a spectator on the couch watching Ireland beat New Zealand for the first ever time in Soldier Field in Chicago. Whenever it goes back to my love for the Chicago Bears from back in the day.
Nice. And here's a good one. Most famous person in your phone book? I'm sure there's plenty, but if you were to pick one, maybe you're not allowed to mention it.
Is that?
Plenty of celebs.
No. One's probably teeing it up with the Masters at the moment. Good local golfer.
Mr. Rory.
Jamie Dornan will probably argue he's more famous, so.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's plenty of females listening that want to maybe get a hold of that number. But yeah, and I suppose final one, we always close the podcast with this. You know, it's called the Unstoppable Podcast, and when you think about what becoming unstoppable means to you, what would your answer be to that?
Being unstoppable is having an end goal in sight and putting all the steps in place to give you the best chance of achieving it. Going back to that simple point of having a goal in mind and putting the micro actions in place for you to reach those goals. You know, build habits daily and follow through to the commitment to yourself. You know, it's having that conversation with the man in the mirror at the end of every day to make sure, you know, if you've set yourself a goal or a target in life, have that honest conversation to see if you've done everything you could that day to reach it.
Absolutely. Paddy,
Thanks,
it was
Jonny.
a pleasure.
Thank you,
you
mate.
very much.
No worries.
And if you would like to see more of our episodes, check out the Unstoppable Podcast on YouTube, and be sure to share this episode with your rugby friends and your business friends and everyone else that you feel would like to listen to exactly what Paddy's had to say.